Hello everyone, and welcome to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else as I try and navigate whatever it is we're doing in this world. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have terrible luck when it comes to cars. I recently bought a new car back in, was it September or October that I got the car? Either way, it was right in that area, and 3 weeks into driving the car, I hit a deer. And it took me, it was still drivable, so it took me a while to get, claims done and figure things out, and I finally got it into the shop. I believe it was November 14th. And they gave me a rental car that I drove for all of 4 days before I hit a deer with it. So that's how my life has been going. I've been couch surfing for the last week because I didn't get my car back until Friday. And yeah, so that's how I've been. But I'm still alive. I'm fine. I'm just tired. Very, very tired. Now, as far as what's going on in the Magic community right now, I don't really know. I've been avoiding Twitter for multiple reasons, and I just don't care enough to look at the new, secret lair drops. I know they're there. I don't know what's in them. That's basically it. I'm just tired. I do have, by the time you listen to this, my final Commander League games will be done. We'll have everything tallied up, and I will, I'll finally be able to talk about those decks. But yeah, this is really just me checking in to let you guys know that I am alive. I did survive, unfortunately. Yeah, and that's kind of it. I'll be right back. I just want to take a minute to tell you about my Patreon. I know times are hard for everybody, and I know it isn't easy to shuffle around bills and stuff. Believe me, I know that. But if you would like to help support the podcast, you can find the links to my Patreon in my link tree, which is always put into the description of either the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to it. It would really mean the world to me. Honestly, I'm just struggling to make ends meet most weeks. But that's it. That's all. If you want to help, the links will be where you can find them. And we're back. Now, typically in the second half of a podcast, I do try and talk about something I've been working on, or a deck that I've played, but I haven't necessarily been playing very much because I haven't had a car to get places. But I did get a copy of Helana and Elena Partners from my cousin Nate. They are a 2/3 human ranger for 2, a red and a green. They have first strike and reach. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, you put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control where X is their power. That creature gains haste until end of turn. So I just kind of went through the cards in my collection and started looking for things in Gruul that are just big, stompy creatures with trample, things that can throw +1/+1 counters around, and I just kind of put this list together. You really can't talk about a +1/+1 counter deck in green without mentioning Hardening Scales, which is an enchantment for a single green. If one or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. But the second thing I really looked for are ways that are going to pump our commander. And the first one I found doesn't necessarily deal with counters, but it's Bloodsworn Steward. It's a 4/4 Vampire Knight for 2 red. It has flying, and commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and haste. So Helena and Elena don't care about the number of counters on them, they just care about their power being increased. So this gives me the same effect as putting 2 +1/+1 counters on it. But we have stuff like Dauntless Survivor, which is 1 and a green for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you put a counter on a creature. We have Tales of Master Shishiro, which is 4 and a green for a saga. The first and second steps are put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. It gains vigilance till end of turn. And on the third, it flips into a 5/5 with vigilance and haste. That picks up +1/+1 counters very well. Ruinous Intrusion is an instant for 3 and a green. You can exile an artifact or enchantment. You put X counters on target creature you control, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. We have things like Iron Apprentice, 1 mana, 0/0 construct. It enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, but when it dies, if it had counters on it, you can put those counters on another target creature you control. So, say we play this and Helena and Elena, we move to combat, it has 1 counter on it, it gets 2 additional counters on it, we swing with a 3/3, if they kill it, those 3 counters then go on to Helena and Elena, and then pump the next thing. Chaldea Strongarm is a 2/3 human warrior for 4 and a green, but when it enters the battlefield, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a target creature. It also has Blitz for 3 and a green. We have Jukai Preserver, which is 3 and a green for a 3/3 human druid. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It also has a channel ability for 2 and a green. You can discard it to put a +1/+1 counter on each of 2 target creatures you control. We've got Run Hydra, X and a green for a 0/0 Hydra. It has reach. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, but more importantly, it has Reinforce X for X green. You discard this card and put X +1/+1 counters on target creature. Roaring Earth is an enchantment for 1 and a green that I've been fairly happy with out of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, yeah. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. It also has channel for X green. You can discard it to put X +1/+1 counters on target land you control. It becomes a 0/0 green spirit creature with haste. It's still a land. And then the last one in this category I want to talk about is Scrounging Bandar. 1 and a green for a 0/0 cat monkey. It enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of +1/+1 counters from Scrounging Bandar onto another target creature. So the way this one works is, you play Scrounging Bandar, it has 2 counters on it. Helena and Elena go to combat, put 2 counters on Scrounging Bandar, you now have a 4/4 Bandar that you can attack with. On your next upkeep, you remove 3 counters and put them on Helena and Elena. That makes Helena and Elena a 5 power. You move to combat, you put 5 counters onto the Bandar, making it a 6/6. So, you're not going to double it, but you are going to be able to essentially increase the number of counters by X -1 every turn. And yeah. So after that, I went looking for anything that wants to pick up counters. And that can be for any kind of reason. So the first one I found was Fertilid. 2 and a green for a 0/0 elemental. It enters with 2+1/+1 counters on it. For 1 and a green, you can remove a counter from it. And make target player search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle their library. So clearly, Fertilid, if you keep putting counters on it, you can keep getting lands. Herd Baloth is a 4/4 beast for 3 green. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Herd Baloth, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. So this one is one of the few ways that we can kind of go wide. If we keep pumping the Baloth, we get more 4/4s that we can subsequently pump. I finally found a deck that wants Sir Farron the Hengehammer, which is a 2/2 human knight for green. When Sir Farron the Hedgehammer attacks, another target attacking creature gets +X/+X till end of turn, where X is Sir Farron's power. So, how you stack these triggers when you attack with Sir Farron and Helena is Sir Farron's attack trigger goes off first, giving Helena and Elena the +2 for it being a 2/2, which then will put 4 counters on Sir Farron. Then the next turn, you do the same thing, you put 4 more counters on Helena and Elena, then they give, 8 to Sir Farron. Speaking of stacking attack triggers, next we have Krenko, Tin Street Kingpin. He's a 1/2 goblin for 2 and a red. Whenever he attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on him, then create a number of 1/1 red goblin creature tokens equal to his power. So again, it's an attack trigger. Oh no, Elena is a beginning of combat. So the last one works slightly differently. That's my bad. But for this one, beginning of combat, you can pump Krenko to 3. Then he puts an additional counter on him, going to 4, which then makes 4 goblins. So this is the other way we can kind of go wide. But then the next things are just the things that want to pick up counters because they're going to hit hard. Things like Tornado Elemental, which is a 6/6 elemental for 5 green. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 6 damage to each creature with flying. And you may have Tornado Elemental assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. We have Colossal Dreadmaw, which is a 6/6 dinosaur for 4 green. It has trample. Molten Monstrosity is a 5/5 Hellion for 7 and a red, but the spell costs X to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. It has trample. It is highly likely that this will cost you a red. Elfheim Worm is a 5/4 worm for 4 and a green. It has Vigilance and trample. Rust Goliath is a 10 mana 10/10 artifact creature construct. It has reach and trample, but it also has prototype. Its prototype is 3 green, and if you play it for its prototype cost, it comes in as a 3/5. So the reason I'm playing this is because it can get in early for 5, and it may not be a 10/10, but it'll still be a 5/7 attacking that turn. Ember Maw Hellion is next. It is a 4/5 Hellion for 3 red. It has trample. But it also says if another red source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1 to that permanent or player instead. And then we have Silver-clad Ferocidons. It's an 8/5 dinosaur for 5 red. It has an enrage ability, so whenever it's dealt damage, each opponent sacrifices a permanent. And making that harder to justify blocking is kind of why it's in here. And then I kind of want to round this out with a few cards that kind of don't necessarily want to pick up counters themselves, but like that we're picking up counters. The first one being Tuskguard Captain. It's a 2/3 human warrior for 2 and a green. It has Outlast for a green, so you can pay green, tap it, and put a counter on it. But each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has Trample. Next we have Nylea, God of the Hunt. It's a 6/6 god for 3 and green. As indestructible, as long as your devotion to green is less than 5. Nylea isn't a creature. Other creatures you control have Trample, and you can pay 3 and a green to give target creature +2/+2 till end of turn. Most likely that's going to be going on to the commander to pump something up. After that we have Kodama of the West Tree, which is a 3/3 spirit for 2 and a green. It has reach. Modified creatures you control have Trample, so that means anything that has an equipment, an aura, or counters. And then whenever a modified creature you control does combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And then to really drive home that this is just something I built with whatever I had laying around, we're going to finish this off with 2 cards that I have not played in a long time. The first one being Overrun, which is a sorcery for 2 green. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and trample till end of turn. And Overwhelming Stampede. It's a sorcery for 3 green. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. See, for the longest time, I have built several Gruul decks that just never felt like they could hang around. I would get bored. It just wasn't working for me. And I still need to get some games in with this to test it, but preliminary gold fishing, I really enjoyed the way this deck played. Yeah, that's gonna do it for me, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.